Welcome. I have to tell you, me being here has been a bit of a scary thing for me because usually when I give any remarks, I have a tendency to think that I know more about the subject than most everybody in the audience. That's probably not true, I just do. But this is the one where I absolutely know that's not true. And so I get really a bit on the nervous side. So what I wanted to do was welcome you all on behalf of the USDA Forest Service and so many others. It's a proud, proud moment for me. I'm very humbled to be here, and I'm awfully glad that you're all here. And I want to underline the issue of safety that David Sleeper said. You know, be very, very careful in and out and on your way home when you finally do that. It's really important that you be with us safe and sound for another day. I want to give I was going to give just a talk, but I'm going to put it on a few PowerPoint slides to just guide me just a little bit. But first I want to tell you a little bit about me. I saw a picture it had a devil with a pitchfork, and it says, you know, who in the hell is this person up here? Most of you probably don't know me. And Steve gave most of my particulars, but I was born and raised in East LA, the barrios of East LA, affectionately they're called. And probably if I would have still been there, I wouldn't have been there. It's a tough, tough neighborhood. Went to my first high school when I first was Compton. If everybody's been to Compton, it's a tough neighborhood. And I was anybody know about Compton? Yeah, hey, Compton's kind of a tough place. Different than where I live now. Started out with the Forest Service so many years ago. In fact, Chris Egert saw me in the parking lot. He says, "I can't believe you're still here." And I sometimes I say the same to myself. I just can't believe I'm still here. But I say three things always when people ask me about my job. And I hope maybe you feel the same about what you do. It's great to be employed. I'm not independently wealthy like most of you in this room might be. Number two is it's an honor to work for the Department of Agriculture. And number three, I work for the greatest organization in the world called the United States Forest Service. And it's been a great, great ride for me and one that I enjoy a lot. Now, about 9 years ago, I decided that I wanted to be a public school teacher. And in Philadelphia, or Pennsylvania, I just thought when I'd call up the Pennsylvania Department of Education, they would see me and say, "Oh my God, please join the classroom right now. The door is waiting for you." Not too far from that, honestly. You all laugh because you know different, but I didn't. And so then they explained to me what I needed to do to become a public school teacher, and I literally hung up the phone and said, "That's too much for me." But somehow somebody changed my mind, and I became a public school teacher. So typically on Friday, not every Friday, but I'm a substitute teacher in middle school. And I'm doing the wrong thing here because in a middle school class, you don't stand up in front of the class because what happens to the people that are from this row back? They get, they just drift, And so usually what I do is I walk around the classroom. And when you walk around the classroom and the teacher becomes close to somebody and then maybe leans on somebody, they initially say, he's going to ask a question, so I better pay attention. So the dilemma that I'm going to have right now is that how do I give a talk and how do I be engaged and not? So I'm going to break some rules. I'm going to stand up there and I'm going to ask for you to act like I'm walking in the classroom. And so we'll have a little game here. So you say, uh-oh, he's coming by. He's going to ask me a question. I better pay attention. And so that's the trick. Now and I'm going to give you, that's one pearl that you might want. You won't listen to anything I else say, but that's one pearl. And I'm going to give you the second pearl. And a couple in here already know it. But it's called the Raines formula for lecturing. And it's very scientifically based, and I've proven it over many, many years, not as long as Hubbard Brook, but I've tried. And here it is, and it's something that you'll want to do in your lives. It's 10, the number 10, plus the average age of a kindergartner, which is 5, is no more, you can't talk any more than those two numbers added together without stopping, because people will get bored. So I won't talk for more than 15 minutes. So when you're gone from this, I want you to remember the range formula for lecturing, because you're going to give lectures. And no kidding, if you talk more than 15 minutes without interrupting something, asking a question, guess what happens? The first rule, from here on out, guess what happens? They drift. So you have two pearls. You won't remember anything else I say, but please remember those. Okay, here we go. And who's my slide kicker offer? Thank you. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to talk about banding together, and I'm going to talk about some visions and some stuff up there. And here's what I'll do. You can look at the slide. I won't read it. I want to give you a couple little tips that I think would be helpful, and maybe together we can augment each other. But I'll talk about a few things in various orders on that. But at the last slide, before any questions, is going to be, and I'm going to tell you what it is right now, it's going to be banding together. I need your help. You need my help. There's the power in this room and the power outside this room is amazing. Your psychological size to make a difference in this world, especially in this world of conservation, is huge. And I need your help to make that happen. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I was looking for a vision of this. And actually, it was interesting. There's lots of visions. But the one thing I want to make sure that we do in terms of the ecosystem study and the Hubbard Brook Experimental Forest and the Research Foundation, it's really the bottom line is to make the lives of people better. That's why we exist. Sure, we want to do good things for conservation. We want to do great things for the land. All of that. But at the end of the day, how is that translating and improving the lives of people through good science? That's really the vision that we want to achieve. So you'll hear me talk about that throughout the rest of my career, improving people's lives through science and making a better community or a more stable community. Okay? Next slide. This was a fun slide for me, the originals I call them. And I knew some, I knew of some, I didn't know of some. And so I started looking at the pictures and I found some that I couldn't find. And so it became kind of a labor of love for me to learn more about these really visionaries. You know, I have a saying, there are giants among us. You know, and I mean that. I mean, there's some people that are just rise above most of us lesser souls like myself. And Gene Likens is here. You know, he's one of the giants among us. And they're visionaries. They're able to see things connected that we don't see, or I don't see. And so that has been the real fabulous underpinning of the ecosystem study and all that we gain from today because of those visionaries, those giants among us. So we owe a lot to those. And moving ahead, we clearly stand on the shoulders of those giants. Okay? And why was it that that ecosystem study landed here? Well, I looked at it, and it's really the ideal place. Great facilities, great infrastructure in terms of the natural facilities, and then the Great White Mountain National Forest, the National Forest system. They provided a protection, if you will, an embrace, if you will, to make sure that whatever we did was indeed protected. And I thought those combination of facilities and natural structures and that embrace, if you will, was just a natural. And they saw it immediately. So the experimental forest made a logical land base for this. Next. And some of you all know this, but there's some people in the audience that are younger than me. That was a joke. I'm working on the joke. All right. Yeah, thanks. A lot younger than me. And I'm looking at somebody that looks over there that looks like he might be in middle school. And so he might not know all this stuff. So now, since then, we have the Hubbard Brook Research Foundation. And when I think of the study in the experimental forest and the foundation, it's really difficult for me to separate out the three. And so I don't want to separate out the three, and I don't want you to either. I think if we're going to be a strong force for, like Steve says, for now the next 50 years, we're going to have to think of that in a triumphant type of arrangement. All banding together, all holding each other together, all making sure that they're all in balance. And if we don't do that, and that's the infrastructure of all three, I think we're going to be in a bit of a jam. I think we're going to be in a bit of a jam. Okay, so I wanted that the key message, that three together are stronger, and it has to be that way. Next one. When I looked at the results, and Steve just said our newly minted 101st PhD. So my slide is already dated, after a while. I thought, gosh, I just did this last week. But look at the impressive outcomes, all the publications and all the minds that have been shaped. And all the results of that has not only shaped landscape scale decisions up here, but throughout the world, really. I mean, so sometimes we think that the impacts of Hubbard Brook might be local. They're far than that, far more than that. And so the impact on people's lives and on science and on the world is really, I mean, it's incalculable. And it's just huge differences that we have made over the years. You have made, and the giants made, and those visionaries made. And now I look at these. Many of these are young PhDs, and many of these are young master students, and they're on their way. They're on their way in their life to find their way, to find their voice. And they're going to make a huge difference. So look at you ought to sort of pat yourselves all on the back for the legacy that is being created now for the future. It's impressive. And if you're in the classroom, which this is, and this is about education, and you know that the legacy that you're shaping is for the future to make good citizens. I mean, it's improved people's lives so they can become good citizens and good contributors to a healthy society. What a foundation the Ecosystem Study and Hubbard Brook and the Hubbard Brook Research Foundation are created. Really pretty impressive. Next. Now, I wanted to give a specific shout out to some really smart people. And there's a lot of smart people, I know that, and so I left some out, but I wanted to mention the Forest Service people because they, on that Hubbard Brook experimental forest ring, if you will, provide such a magnificent contribution, and I'm really proud of them. I just think they're the best. I mean, they're the best. And after those, there'll be others that will come along. And with your help, we can keep that cadre going. But I wanted to just give a shout out to most of them are here. I just saw most of them walking around. And so I am very, very proud of the USDA Forest Service for producing these folks and for those folks producing us. Next. Those smart people are leading to a new thing called Smart Forest. I should take the credit for this and say that I thought about this, but I didn't. Where's Lindsay Rustad? Lindsay, she just raised her hands, go a little slower, but it's like Lindsay. Lindsay is another giant among us. And she is created this notion of smart forest, where experimental forests, for example, can real-time, live-time, talk to each other. So I remember the time when I was a hydrologist, a young hydrologist on the Plumas National Forest in California. And I walked out about 7 miles and changed a recording gauge and then walked back. And every 6 months I would do that. And I thought, that was really cool. I was really on leading edge stuff then. And now I think about how that now information can be beamed up and in real time, where people can instantaneously understand the impacts of a changing ecosystem. Look how far we have come. And so we're going to begin to link those up, not only just with Hubbard Brook, but with some other of our iconic experimental forests in the Northeast, and maybe this will happen nationally. So then we look at real-time, instantaneous changes in the ecosystem where people have that information they can use at at their fingertips all the time. So be aware and be prepared for the next generation of utility of the iconic Hubbard Brook Experimental Forest. Next. When I talk about experimental forest, I use the word national treasures, because if you think about it, from across the country to the Northeast to right where we are here in Woodstock, these are national treasures. They're the foundations for legacies yet to be realized. And I think it's really important that we know them as national treasures and appreciate them as national treasures and never let them slip away, which will go to my next, almost last slide. There is a tipping point that's beginning to develop, and I call it a chasm between demand for services and our science capacity. The chasm is getting larger. Capacity is getting smaller, demands are getting greater, and we're trying what we can. And this sounds like a paid political announcement. What it is a plea for you to recognize that. And if we want to have the Hubbard Brook Experimental Forest and the Ecosystem Study and the Research Foundation be critical parts of America's lives for the future, then we're going to have to make a shout out to those people who decide about pulling the capacity chasm more together. Demands, I don't expect will go down. I do want to have the capacity to rise to meet that a little bit more. So my plea to you all is share your voice. Share your voice with people. Share your voice with opinions. Share your voice with members of Congress, other leaders, whoever you want to, and in yourself. Be that informed citizenry that makes sure that the first 50 years will carry on now for the next 150 years. I think the last slide. This is my banding together. This is my banding together. Banding together, sharing resources are going to be the elixir for our success. And if you think about what's happened over the last 50 years, and all the lives, all the land, all the impacts that have been made, it's going to be fabulous to think about the promise for the next 50 to 150 years, but only with your help. So I'm asking, let me help you and you help me. I don't know that I'll be the station director in 50 years from now, but there will be station directors in 50 years, and I'm not leaving tomorrow, so together we're here with each other. So let's band together and be a force. I think my last slide is any questions. Go ahead. Yeah, I wanted to again thank you very much for being here. A beautiful experience for me. I'm really proud to be a small part of this, and it's a great celebration, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it, and again, be very, very safe. So thank you very much.
Smart forests also tap into neon, and will the two talk to each other?
Yeah, great question. In fact, we were asking that together, and I kind of looked around and I go, I hope so. The tactics of, yes, absolutely. The tactics of that yet to be described, but we're going to make sure of that, because remember, banding together, sharing resources, and I didn't, let's say the last thing, avoiding duplication is really what we want to be at. So we want to take advantage of that. Good question. We'll make sure it happens.
We're going to need to move on.